Welcome to iPad Pros, the show all about using your iPad to be productive and get work done. I'm Tim Chen, host of the show.
This episode of iPad Pros is sponsored by Drafts, where text starts. Quickly capture text and send it almost anywhere. Learn more at getdrafts.com.
And what didn't really show up on the video, and what I didn't notice until after I filmed my A-roll, is when you hold your finger against the Touch ID sensor, that label actually fills up. So it fills up as it's authenticating, and it's quick too. So if you're not paying attention to it, you won't notice it. I didn't notice it for about 4 or 5 days.
Welcome back to another episode of iPad Pros. We're joined by return guest Chris Lawley. Chris was one of the select few that was given an iPad Air by Apple to review on his YouTube channel. We discussed in depth the iPad Air 4th generation, the new 8th generation iPad, creating videos with LumaFusion, and much more. Make sure to check out his awesome iPad Air review on YouTube. With that said, if you'd like to support this podcast, there are a few ways to do just that. First off, download Drafts on the App Store. Drafts is an app I use on a daily basis. It is also frequently featured by Chris as one of his essential productivity apps. It is an all-around incredible text app and one that every iPad Pro should be using. The second way to support this podcast is just by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. Every review goes a really long way in signaling to Apple to show this show more in search. You can also get episodes early at patreon.com/iPadPros. With that said, here's my interview with Chris, all about the new iPad Air. Enjoy. Welcome back to the podcast, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. So first off, congratulations for being included in this round of embargoed reviews for the iPad Air. We're at, the 4th generation now?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, I kind of feel bad. You asked me to be on the show a little earlier, and I was like, I can't tell you why and can't talk about it, but let's wait. So I apologize, but no, I'm excited to be here, and we can talk about the iPad Air and anything else you want to chat about.
Excellent. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's busy fall, as we all know.
Mm-hmm.
So busy fall, as we all know. This was not the only iPad. You also reviewed the 8th generation standard iPad.
Yes.
That was released earlier, introduced at the same event. Anything of note about that iPad before I move on to the more exciting Air?
So there's really only 2 changes to that iPad. First off, it has the A12 processor now, so it's a bit faster. It's noticeably faster. I actually own the 7th generation iPad and kind of was playing around with them both at the same time, and it's definitely noticeably faster. And it also has a USB-C brick in the box. It's a USB-C to Lightning cable and a USB-C charging brick. So
that's fascinating.
No more USB-A for the iPads, unless they didn't change out the iPad Mini one, which they may not have. I don't know.
I mean, they've been updating the iPhones, the old ones, to remove stuff, so they might be swapping out everything to USB-C for the chargers they are including.
That would be nice. The one thing that kind of makes me a little curious is at the iPhone event, they talked about, everyone has all these charging bricks, so we're not going to put them in the box anymore. But if they change all the cables to USB-C to Lightning,
everyone will be buying those bricks now.
Yeah, now everyone's going to be buying those bricks again. So I'm a little eyebrow raised when it comes to the whole we're doing it for the environment statement. I'm sure they're not lying. I'm sure that's a part of it.
It's helpful, but it's also a money generator. Something that I just thought of is they might just not want to make the USB-A bricks anymore. It's we're done making these.
Yeah.
The C ones are bigger and more expensive. You guys can buy those.
Yeah, and USB-C will charge faster than USB-A. You can, the standard USB-C charger is 20 watts as opposed to Apple's standard USB-A one, which was 5 watts, which makes me laugh because it's been 5 watts since the original iPhone.
Yeah. And MagSafe is 15 watts, so it can't even do a MagSafe fully.
Yeah, MagSafe is 15, but that's okay to me.
15's great. I mean, 20 is what, fast charging?
Yeah, 20 is fast charging for the iPhone. 30 is fast charging for the iPads.
Yeah.
iPad, the newer iPads.
And I think 15 wireless is different from 15 wired. I think still 15 wired would be faster than 15 wireless, but I might be wrong there.
Yes. Yeah, no, I believe you're correct. Because there is, this is, now we're getting into physics here.
You lose stuff in the
You lose,
transfer.
yeah. Exactly. Yeah, you start to lose heat and energy in between the transfers. So yes, exactly. So 15 watts is probably more like 12 or 13. That's not scientific. Don't quote me on that. But it's probably more reasonable like that.
It should still be better than that 5-watt charger you were using a couple years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know about you, but I charge my iPhone at night. So I just leave it on my nightstand. It charges. So I'm not too worried if it's slower charging at night, because some of the really cool things that were introduced in iOS 11, was it? No, I'm sorry. We're on iOS 14.
Yes, we are.
Wow, it's been a long couple of weeks.
You're talking about the charging thing where it's
yes, yeah, where it learns your charging habits.
Yep.
So it'll like basically get it to about 80%
and wait,
and then it'll top it off. Yep. That's a nice little feature.
It is, yeah. So this iPad, that's what, $329 is?
Yeah. So for the base one, it's $329. But my problem with that is it's 32 gigs, but you can get it to go up to 128, and I don't have that price in front of me. I don't remember what it is.
400. I think it's a very low increase in price.
It's not that much more. And basically what I told everyone is do not buy the 32 gig one.
Unless you use it as a... And then video, you mentioned just a shortcuts server. Just have it up as that.
Yeah, I mean that would work. Like you could, if you wanted to use something like push cut and launch cut, a 32 gig version would be fine for that. But even still, for the price difference,
just go with the higher storage.
Just go with the 120, because you might want to use it as something else down the road. Like you never know. The one thing I'm actually putting together like an iPad buyer's guide video right now. And the one thing that I keep talking about in this video, or I keep mentioning in my outline, I haven't actually filmed it yet, so it's just an outline right now, is you can't upgrade the storage in an iPad. And every time I say that, I always get a few people that comment and say, well, you can use an external hard drive.
Not the same
at
all.
Not the same. Exactly. You can't install apps to it.
It's even less not the same than on the Mac, where you can use external storage. You can boot from an external drive on the Mac. You can't do that on iOS.
Yeah, no, you can't install apps on it. You can't put your music library there. You can't put your photos library there unless you want to like manually put like your photos and manually put your music and manually play them one at a time,
or in an external app, some like third-party app that's not the music app.
Yeah, but even still, like that doesn't sound like a fun time to me.
Nope.
And the iPad is meant to be a portable computer, and having to plug an external hard drive into it doesn't. It's not a way to live, people. Like,
it's not. Even if you have like an SD card hooked up via some kind of dongle thing, it's not great.
Yeah, I know a lot of people, especially video editors and stuff like that, that unfortunately they just have to edit off external hard drives because they don't have enough space on their computers. And what they did is they took like Velcro tape and put it one side on the hard drive and one side on the back of the MacBook, like monitor. That way it's always there and they can just plug it in if they want. And it's on Velcro so they can detach it pretty easily.
Right.
That does not sound like fun.
No.
The last last iPad Pro update, I decided I am buying the 1 terabyte iPad. I am always going to buy the biggest tier of storage of the iPad Pro, and I will never look back. I'm a video editor.
We are both on the 1 terabyte plan right now.
yeah, exactly. Did you get the 2021 or are you still on the 2018 one? 2020. That's right. We talked about this last time.
I went from 2017 or 2017 to 2020. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, the oh wow. Oh, that's right. You skipped the 2018 ones.
Yep. Was not ready for me yet. The Magic Keyboard is what got me over the edge.
Yeah, the Magic Keyboard is nice. It is it's still one of my favorite accessories, if not just tech products of 2020.
It's completely changed how I use the iPad. It's remarkable.
I mean it's changed the way I edit video. It's changed the way I do everything. And by speeding up my workflow, by giving me that extra input method of the trackpad. And also the keyboard's really nice to type on as well.
It's so weird to think that like earlier this year, I was touching my screen for everything. And now I'm using the trackpad more so than touch in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I would agree too. I would say I'm like 75%, like when the iPad is in the Magic Keyboard, I would say I'm 75% on the trackpad and about 25% using the touchscreen. I don't know about you, but I basically have stopped using the Apple Pencil. I can't really draw.
Oh, it's funny. So when I'm not using the trackpad, I'll yank it off the keyboard and I'll use the pencil to navigate the UI, and my finger touches the screen, but it's probably the least percentage out of all the input options.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not much of an artist. I can't really draw or anything. I use the Apple Pencil a lot over the summer to test out Scribble and all the other stuff for my iPad OS 14 walkthrough video.
Yeah.
But like since then, since on the other side of that now, I mostly have just using it to like test out new apps that really focus on Apple Pencil updates so I can do some videos on that stuff. But for my personal usage, I don't use the pencil as much anymore. Like I was before trackpad came along, I was using it for everything to edit videos, edit audio and Fairwrite.
Mm-hmm.
And now I don't use it for much at all. And I think there's a clear division between iPad users now. Like there's definitely some that prefer keyboard cases and trackpads, and there's definitely some that's like, nope, I will take maybe a smart cover and the Apple Pencil so I can handwrite out my notes or draw. Like there's a lot of YouTube videos. I don't know if you've seen these or not, but like there's like a whole genre of like, here's my good notes notebooks and here's how I like kind of organize them and write in them and stuff like that. And they're really fascinating to me. But my handwriting is terrible and I could never make one of those.
Right. Yeah. It's impressive to see what people can do with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, iPad Air 4th generation.
Yes.
Was announced last month in September. It is now October and has been released, or will be released on Friday, I should say. It's available for pre-order as we record. When this episode goes live, it'll be available and you can get it. And first off, I just have to ask about, how does this iPad feel in the hand with no keyboard or anything? How does it compare to the Pro? Is it noticeably lighter in any way? Does it feel different in the hand?
So in my video, I compared it to the 11-inch iPad Pro because I just feel that's a better comparison than comparing it to the 12.9.
Totally.
It feels about the same in the hand. It's actually 0.04 pounds lighter. So not that noticeable, but it makes it an even pound, which is kind of brings it closer to the iPad mini because the iPad mini, I believe, is just under a pound in weight.
And I guess if you added cellular, it would probably bring it up to match a Wi-Fi Pro. I don't know.
Yeah, probably right around there. I just remember when the iPad mini weighs less than a pound. I know that, but I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. It feels really good. Like when I got it, I was just, sitting with it. I waited a while before I put it in like any case or anything. I just wanted the traditional iPad experience. I sat there, used it. One of my favorite things about it actually is the lock button. So the lock button on the iPad Air is about a third bigger than the iPad Pro's lock button.
Okay.
And it just has this satisfying feedback. Now, also, the iPad Air, while it has the new iPad Pro design, it does not have Face ID. It has Touch ID, and Touch ID lives in that lock button. It's very satisfying lock button. I'm a mechanical keyboard lover. I think we talked about this last time, too. I love the feedback certain buttons can give, and this one totally falls in that category. So I kind of went on about that in my review of it, and I highly doubt anyone actually cared, other than maybe like Apple engineers or engineers in general.
I mean, there is something satisfying about a really well designed button, like,
and this is
the iPhone SE, the original iPhone SE, that home button. It just feels great to click that thing. And yeah, buttons can, if they're done well, they can feel great.
Yeah, who doesn't love a good button?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, but Touch ID is also in that button, and it works great. In fact, I've been on this iPad Air as like my main computer for so long. I tweeted this out this morning after I posted my review and everything, that I grabbed my iPad Pro because I had a work project I needed to work on. So I grabbed that, and I kept putting my finger on the lock button for my iPad Pro, and it wouldn't unlock. I was like, what's going on here? And then I had to think about that for a second. I was like, oh yeah, that's not how this one works.
Is the covering to that button the same material as you would find on the old home buttons? Is that the same material, or is it a different material?
It has been so long since I've had oh, you know what? I have the 8th gen iPad. Hang on one second. It's kind of hard to tell too, because the iPad Air I have is blue,
right?
Which is a very, very subtle blue. But I mean, it does kind of feel similar. Kind of, but I would say the iPad Air one is much more satisfying to like click and hit The home button on like the 8th gen iPad is still kind of mushy.
Just like the texture, though. I mean, just like the covering material. Yeah. Is it the similar kind of? It feels like almost like a
kind of like
glossy something.
Kinda. Yeah. I don't know. I'm probably not the best to compare those two, but
okay.
I would say it's a very interesting button that's definitely different than the current lock buttons on any Apple devices.
Yeah. I'd love to see this make its way to future iPads. Something I noticed today after seeing all these reviews is I bought a free app in the App Store and I tried to double click the side button and failed. And I would love just Touch ID just to make that experience better.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Anytime I go to like buy something from the App Store or my iPad Pro, I usually lock the iPad in the first attempt because I don't double click it fast enough.
And it would be also more secure. It'd be like double authentication for buying stuff.
Yeah, and then also sometimes like when my iPad is in the Magic Keyboard case or something, when I go to hit the button to trigger Face ID, sometimes my arm will be covering the Face ID sensor, so it won't work. I would love to see like Touch ID come like kind of marry itself with Face ID. Like,
yeah.
I love Face ID for unlocking my device. I think like sitting down at the iPad and when I have it in a keyboard case or paired with a keyboard, just double tapping the space bar, which first tap wakes it up, first tap wakes it up, and then we'll trigger Face ID, and then the second tap will just open it up and put you right on the home screen.
Yeah,
which is one of my favorite things. Like,
it's great.
I don't have to type a long password or anything. It just triggers, boom, good to go. But like on the iPhone, especially right now with COVID and everything going on and everyone wearing masks, I am kind of surprised Apple didn't bring Touch ID to the iPhone 12. I'm a little surprised about that one.
I'm sure they would have if they could have. Maybe next year.
Yeah, but Apple's such a big company and they have such resources that it just seems like I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it would have fit. It's just kind of a surprise to me. Like I think they would sell
killer.
So many more. Yeah, there would have been so many more sold if Touch ID was on there, because I don't know about you, but when I have had to go out, or you're still on the original SE, so you don't have.
Oh yeah,
Face
I still
ID
got the Touch ID. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you're just smarter than the rest of us.
I'm about to experience the Face ID world with masks. So
yeah, this is an unfortunate time to start off in Face ID, because Face ID on the iPhone is great. I absolutely love it. I like it more than Touch ID on the iPhone, but I had weird issues with Touch ID on the iPhone that I'm not having now with this iPad Air.
Okay. Yeah, I was about to ask about just responsiveness. So it's a smaller surface area, but it's just as fast as the larger home buttons?
It's incredibly fast. I trying to film it was kind of a pain because of how fast it was. I would try and film the screen and I'd be like, okay, I need like a 3-second shot of it unlocking.
Slow motion,
I'd have to like I didn't want to do that because then it would make it seem like it slowed down.
Yep.
So like what I ended up doing is I'd like have to wake up the screen, pause for a second, and then put my finger on it, and then it would trigger. It's incredibly fast. Like nobody can say Face or Touch ID isn't fast on the iPad Air.
How was training it? Was that slower?
No, it was fine. When you set up the iPad, basically it has you set it up in a landscape, or however you're holding it first. So let's just say you're setting it up in landscape orientation. It has you train whatever finger is on that side. So for me, it was my left index finger.
Mm-hmm.
So I do that one, train that one, and then would have you rotate it into portrait mode, and then I trained my right index finger.
Okay.
It was totally fine. It worked great. I think the training is great. You can still add more fingers. So if you want to add like one of your other fingers, you can, or if you have like a spouse or somebody else you live with that
you want 5 still, right?
Yeah, sure. We'll go with that. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's been a while since you've used Touch ID on a regular basis.
Yeah, exactly. Like using the 8th gen iPad was my first time using Touch ID probably since the 2018 iPad.
Sure.
I guess. Oh no, I refuse. 2018 was when the iPad Pros with Face ID came out.
Yep.
But I guess I did review the 7th generation iPad as well, so I guess I would have used Touch ID in there too. So, but yeah, no, I haven't. You had to use it in a while, so it was kind of weird to get back to. there was a lot of times at first when I'd sit down and I'd be like, okay, why isn't Face ID triggering on this thing?
Yeah.
Because it looks just like the 11-inch iPad Pro.
I really love the Touch ID labeled on the screen to show you, hey, here's where the button is. It's just such a nice touch.
And what didn't really show up on the video, and what I didn't notice until after I filmed my A-roll, is when you hold your finger against the Touch ID sensor, that label actually fills up.
Oh, that's so cool.
So it fills up as it's authenticating, and it's quick too. So if you're not paying attention to it, you won't notice it. Like I didn't notice it for about 4 or 5 days, and I was like, oh, hey, that's cool. So you can actually see it in my video, but I didn't notice it until after I had already filmed the A-roll part. And my A-roll, the original cut of this video was actually 45 minutes long. I had to cut it down to 21.
So the extended version's coming out next week?
No. I have a hard enough time getting people to watch a 20-minute video on YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube will punish you for putting out a video that long.
Right.
But yeah, no, I still have a lot of things to say about this iPad that I will be saying in upcoming videos.
Excellent. I was just thinking it'd be amazing if the 3rd generation iPhone SE would be full screen, no notch, and just uses Touch ID to get around the whole thing.
With the iPhone 12 mini coming out, do you think there will be a 3rd generation SE?
Yeah, because SE, it originally stood for a special edition when they originally announced the phone. And to me, it's more like, here's a lower cost device at this point, using a mixture of modern and older things. So I don't know. Like, because the mini is $700. So they still want a phone that's less expensive than that, that's also new at some point in the future.
But what I could see them doing is maybe next year, the iPhone SE goes away and the iPhone 12 mini basically gets put in that price slot.
I think it'll get discounted by $100 next year and move down the line like they did this year. I think the SE is on like a 3-year cycle, and in 3 years they'll create some kind of SE 3rd generation that things, because I also think Apple likes selling phones like the SE and the Apple Watch now, one model that they can sell for like 3 years without any revisions. I think they really like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. I just pulled up the SE webpage and I just realized now the white version has a black front and that looks really nice.
Yeah, they switched to that. I forget like what generation they stopped doing white faceplates, and that is a nice change for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the last time I had an iPhone with a home button was the iPhone 7, and that was the one that they actually got rid of the physical home button and went with the whatchamacallit one. But that had the jet black version, and oh, I love that phone. That's probably easily in my top 3 favorite iPhones.
Yeah, people have very fond memories of that one. Too big for me, but people like it.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to iPad land.
Yeah.
We have colors, sorta.
Yeah.
So most of the reviews I saw got the blue model. There's also green, which now that I've seen the blue in the videos, I kind of want to see green in videos to see if it's more color than the blue. Because you were telling me before the show, the blue is kind of hard to show those blue because it's so similar to silver.
Yeah, so the blue is a very light blue. They call it sky blue. So I don't think it's misleading at all. It is a very light blue.
Depending what sky you're looking at, it could be pretty...
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's fair. But it is a very, very light blue, and it is incredibly hard to film. So I had to take what's called an aperture MC, which for those that don't know, it's basically this kind of RGB light that has different hues and intensities and stuff like that. So in order to get the blue to show up, I had to shine blue light that kind of matched that blue on it. To kind of bring it out a little bit, just because that was the only way I could actually get it to show up. I don't think my video, looking at it now, I don't think it does a very accurate representation of that blue, just because I don't have getting really technical on a camera stuff. So I have a Canon EOS R. I film in 8-bit color. And I don't think like it could just kind of pick up the subtleties of that blue with my lighting setup and things like that. If I was shooting in 10-bit, or if I could shoot in 10-bit, maybe I could have gotten that, but I couldn't quite get that. But my point is the blue is very subtle on this iPad. I haven't seen any of the other colors. I saw some videos of the green one and stuff like that. I actually think the green looks really good, but
There were some reviews with green.
yeah, there were a couple. I think MKBHD got a green one.
Of
I
course
think I
he
saw
did.
he had, yeah. And
He
then
got the
I
red
think,
iPhone as well, so he gets the fun different colors.
yeah, it might. I don't know entirely how it works on who gets what kind
Sure,
of thing, but yeah, I got the blue one. I know a few other people that got the blue one. We all kind of had similar issues when it came to filming it. It was funny, like after the embargo dropped and everyone was releasing their reviews, it's like, oh, so you had one too. So, in YouTube land, we were messaging each other about like all the questions and stuff we had. And it was like, did you have problems getting the blue to show up in a video? And basically everyone was kind of struggling with it and had to come up with really interesting ways to kind of flush out the blue of the iPad. But in person, when you're looking at it in person, it's definitely blue. It's just a very light blue.
Okay. And you were about to say about you'd pick out what color if you were going to buy one yourself?
If I was to buy one myself, I would be getting the blue one. Like hands down, I'd get the blue one. Just because, like, hey, we finally have colors in iPad land here. Like, don't get the boring one. Get the fun one.
Green is not a thing you care about?
I'm not a big fan of that color, that shade of green.
Okay.
But if I like green, it's going to be like a really dark green. It's going to be like a kind of
forest.
It's going to be a dark forest green. Like that's the kind of green I like. Kind of like almost a neutral color green.
Yeah, I'm kind of that way for all the colors. I wish Apple just did dark, saturated colors and none of these wimpy colors for any other devices.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of go for the pastel look sometimes, and they kind of jump around. I know some people that like it, and I get it. Like, people like it. And the one thing that's really nice is if you don't want those kind of pastel colors, is their space gray, or what they're calling this version of space gray, is probably as close to black as space gray will ever get, which is kind of nice. Like it looks, at least from Apple's product images, I haven't seen one.
Yeah.
But that's probably as close to black as space gray will ever get.
It's interesting you're calling it space gray because everything else is graphite this year.
Yeah, that one's a little weird. And also they're so rose gold, and like I thought rose gold was done for a while. Yeah, it's kind of weird, the color choices and stuff. I'm just hoping we start to see color choices in the iPad Pro line. That's what I really want to see.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
This episode is sponsored by Drafts, which just rolled out their iPad OS and iOS 14 update. In this quick break, I want to share a little bit on what makes Drafts such a powerful text utility for the iPad. Drafts does a lot of things great. First and foremost is capture. You open the app and it's immediately ready for capture on your iPad. Tap the Apple Watch complication, and your watch can be used to immediately capture a dictated note. Speaking of dictation, I've never seen a better way to take dictated notes on the iPad. By some magic, Drafts will endlessly loop the built-in Siri dictation, so you never need to worry if the dictation will time out on you. The second thing Drafts does insanely great is letting you send that text you captured anywhere. Want to send a tweet without getting lost in your timeline? Drafts has you covered. Drafts hooks into all of your favorite apps, including iMessage, Bear, Ulysses, Evernote, Apple Mail, Dropbox, iCloud Drive, Fantastical, Zapier, Apple Notes, Microsoft OneNote, WordPress, OmniFocus, Reminders, Things, Todoist, and many others. Drafts is the grand central station of text, letting you capture text quickly and get it where you need it right away. Besides all of these great app integrations is the vast action directory that lets you automate your text in powerful ways. The incredible community at forums.getdrafts.com can also help you create new custom actions if you need a bit of help perfecting that perfect action for you. The third thing Drafts does great is letting you edit your text. Use the Arrange tool to quickly move blocks, lines, or sentences around. It's an interface that is so intuitive and fun that makes Drafts my go-to place for editing the order of my text. The text composition window is infinitely customizable to make it just right for you. Drafts is free to use with full abilities to create, edit, and sync drafts and run actions installed with the app or from the action directory. If you want even more from Drafts, Drafts Pro unlocks these additional powerful features. Create and edit actions with unlimited flexibility to create, customize, and extend actions. Pre-configure recipients for messages, integrate with third-party apps, or take advantage of advanced scripting. Themes and icons. allow you to make the app experience suit your tastes, dark, solarized, and other themes with automatic switching. Customize the app home screen with special icons on iPadOS and iOS. Workspaces. Take control of your drafts list with saved workspaces, which can restore preferred tag, query, and sort settings. Widgets and sharing. With Drafts Pro, you can access drafts directly from widgets, append and prepend to drafts in the Share extension on iPad. Enhanced automation. Access drafts, actions, and features as services utilizing advanced shortcuts on iOS and incoming URL schemes from other apps. And also you get to support development and make sure Drafts keeps getting better by being a Drafts Pro user. To learn more, go to getdrafts.com. Download Drafts today for free from the App Store. Thanks again to Drafts for sponsoring this episode of iPad Pros. Learn more at www.getdrafts.com. So the LCD quality in this iPad Pro, can you see any difference between that and just looking at visually, not ProMotion or anything, just the visual quality of it?
No, not really. So it's technically the resolution of the screen is technically smaller than the 11-inch iPad Pro, but that's just because it's a 10.9-inch screen versus an 11-inch screen. But the pixels per inch are still the same between the two devices.
Yeah.
So technically, the iPad Air has a more dense pixel screen. That's not the technical term that I just can't think of it right now. But it technically has more pixels per inch, so it should be a sharper screen. Mm-hmm. Putting them side by side, you can't tell the difference.
Okay.
Like you're not going to be able to pixel peep these iPads.
And
like,
that point one, you're just like a little bit bigger bezel, and it's cutting a little bit out of the screen. You can't really notice in day-to-day usage, probably.
Exactly. Like and it's pretty obvious why they made it just a bigger bezel
on
this iPad. Yeah, well, they wanted to. So all the 11-inch iPad Pro accessories work for this iPad Air. So they didn't. It's the same Magic Keyboard. It's the same Smart Folio keyboard. If you have one of the smart covers that works for the 11-inch iPad Pro, that'll work on the new iPad Air. So I think they just kind of wanted to keep that line all the same.
Yeah, it's smart. Same thing they did with the 10.5-inch iPad Pro, making it work with all the other, like the 8th generation iPad works with the old 10.5-inch screen accessories.
Yep.
So the Apple Pencil, interesting thing here, just the refresh rate is the old original iPad Pro refresh rate. I heard Renee point out that they use the A14 to try to predictively tell you where the pencil's going, so that kind of helps, but it's still no ProMotion. How's the pencil feel to you?
So I put the two side by side, and I just drew on them both at the same time, and I didn't really notice a difference between the two unless you start like going wild and crazy and drawing really fast and like in unpredicted like circles. So kind of like what Renee was pointing out, where the A14 does try to predict where you're going. But that being said, obviously the iPad Pro, the screen refreshes at 120 hertz. The regular iPad Air now has a 60 hertz refresh rate. So the iPad Pro has double the refresh rate. So it's just going to be better. It's just going to be a better experience. And I'm guessing next year, I don't know anything at all, but just, looking at trends and stuff like that, I'm guessing next year we will get an iPad Pro with the A14X, and it will be top dog again, I guess.
Yeah.
And not that it isn't already. I think a lot of people misunderstood what Apple was kind of preaching when they talked about the A14. The A14 is great. It's fast. It's now the iPad Air is now the fastest iOS device or iPad OS device in single core performance, but the iPad Pro has more cores in it. So the iPad Air has 6 CPU cores, but 2 of them are low performance cores and 4 of them are high performance cores. So the A12Z, which is in the current iPad Pros, has an 8-core CPU, which is 4 cores low performance and 4 cores high performance. So in multi-core, the iPad Pro is going to always beat the iPad Air. But in single core performance, that's where the iPad Air starts to shine.
Okay. Yeah, and something of just note, I guess, it seemed pretty close. So single core, it's faster, but not much faster than the A12Z. Yeah. And the multi-core, it is faster in the Z, but again, not a ton. So they're very close.
Yeah, they are very close. So that's why I'm really curious to see what the A14X or A14Z is gonna be, yeah. And as somebody that spent a lot of time this week waiting for LumaFusion to export, because there's a bug in LumaFusion right now. I know you use it, and I'm curious if you've come across it, where the audio and the video do not sync correctly. And it's especially happens on videos longer than 10 minutes. I think I've kind of narrowed it down to just stuff that's longer than 10 minutes.
Oh, wow. I've not encountered that. I have encountered that many years ago in Final Cut Pro 10. I was like, it's the most aggravating thing when a bug like that occurs.
Yeah. And I've asked the people at LumaFusion about this, and they gave me a whole bunch of things to try. And the thing that was frustrating was none of those things were the actual fix. I just kept having to export over and over again. And eventually I got a copy that looked fine. So that was a little frustrating. So if I could get an A14X or an A14Z that speeds up rendering time, I will take it.
So did you do the actual video on the Air? Did you do this one on your Pro?
I started to do this one on the Air, but then I realized I had over 300 gigs of footage, and I just physically couldn't put all that on the iPad Air. So
Gotcha.
I did end up doing this one on my Pro. I did a video before this one talking about a company called Editor's Keys. They put out a new keyboard cover for the Magic Keyboard, specifically for LumaFusion keyboard shortcuts. I did that video on the iPad Air, but I couldn't talk about it because embargo. But I did do the edit on that one. But the annoying thing was I couldn't show that iPad during that video. So like all the filming of the iPad in that video is of my 12.9-inch iPad Pro.
And I'm guessing you left the end title card as Pro because it might be a giveaway. You're probably not editing on the 3rd generation iPad Air, even though you could have.
Well, I'm going to say yes to that. But honestly, as I'm talking right now, I just realized I didn't change the template. That's a template that I have at the end, and
Gotcha.
I accidentally forgot to change it because out of force of habit, I just add that template automatically and didn't even think that it said iPad Pro. So that one's not edited on an iPad Pro. I should probably go make like a pin comment or something, but edited on an iPad Air, but couldn't have mentioned it was edited on iPad Air. So we'll just say, I did that because it would have been a dead giveaway.
Gotcha. Yeah. So A14, it's a beast. It's going to be in iPhones. And I think a lot of that stuff is the neural engine's going to be a big thing. And photography is a huge part of what makes the A14 special. And it's sad that like the iPad has cameras, but they don't spend any time optimizing. Like LiDAR has no really photography enhancements with the iPad Pro because the lenses are separate. Yeah.
I didn't even talk about the cameras in my iPad Air review. I typically don't. There's only been one review where I talked about the camera and an iPad, and that was the iPad Pro 2020 because it was one of the only changes to it. Mm-hmm. It's just not really something that interests me as a device. I don't think the images that you can capture on an iPad are that great. Like I would rather use my iPhone, but even on top of that, I'd rather use my fancy camera.
So where I think this eventually soonish will come in handy is LumaFusion's working on an update that adds multi-cam support. And if you have a bunch of extra iPads laying around, iPads are easy to put on keyboard stands to be in a good cameraing angle to capture a video. And if you have a 1 terabyte model, you can capture a lot of video without filling it up. And it could be a good secondary camera for your multi-cam workflows.
Yeah, that would be really interesting. That's actually the first I've heard about that. I didn't know they were working on a multicam thing. I'm not on the beta for it. It's weird. It's probably the application I use the most, but I am not on the beta for it.
That one's not in the beta cycle yet. They were talking about it on a podcast, Mac Voices, with Chuck Joyner. They were talking about kind of the future and what they're working on. I screamed for joy when I heard that they're working on multicam because I asked Terry about this. I think episode 3 or 4 of this podcast when I had her on, and it was something I asked her about, and they're finally doing it after 3 years. The basically Final Cut Pro 10 implementation where you have say 4 videos playing simultaneously. You just tap on what video you want to cut to in real time, and you just tap between them as you want to.
Oh, that would be so nice.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Because right now I'm kind of redoing my office right now, and I'm kind of getting ready to set up a multicam setup. So I have an A-roll shot with me talking into the camera, but then I'm going to have an overhead shot so you can see the iPad. And I've been putting it off because there's not really an easy way to edit that in LumaFusion other than like putting one of those on top and like turning the opacity down to like 50% and kind of like edit. But even that's not a great way to edit. But yeah.
I'm guessing 2021 is when this will be rolled out, and it's gonna be huge.
Yeah.
It's gonna use audio to sync. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, that's hopefully they fix their audio sync bug. It only happens on export. It doesn't happen when you're editing, so that's good at least. But that will be really nice. I'm just glad they finally added multi-select. That has been something I've been asking for since like day one. Because I've been like that not having multi-clip select has cost me so much time in the past. Like if I mess up a color grade or if I need to go back and change something to a bunch of clips, that can really make for a bad day.
Yeah. Something they're very on top of is in the current beta that's out there, they've got HDR Dolby, like I'm pretty sure Dolby Vision support in LumaFusion. Like that's going to be one of the next big updates that rolls out rather soon here. They're right on top of it with the phones going to be supporting that. So I hope it supports the iPhone version of HDR capture.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I mean, so the iPhone is technically, the way I understand that it works, and I could be completely wrong here. I haven't gotten my hands on one yet. But from what I understand is it just films in 10-bit color.
Yep.
And then it basically applies Dolby Vision to it in post. I don't think it's like filming Dolby Vision live. Maybe I misunderstood. I haven't had a chance for obvious reasons to really look that much into iPhone specs because iPhone event happened and then, I got working on other stuff that has been released and some stuff that has not. Nothing Apple related. I don't know anything more Apple related, just some other stuff that I'm working on.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I'm very curious to see how that goes because I'll be able to start playing around with HDR stuff. And I believe, does the iPad Pro display, I think it does, HDR content, yeah?
Yes. Huge asterisk on that. Sort of. Technically it can, but it really actually doesn't get bright enough to support HDR.
Fully. So it's like supported.
So technically only one iPad has ever supported HD, like really supported HDR.
Yeah,
and that was the 2017 ones.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was the 10.5 and the 12.9 of that one. Those two were technically the only ones to ever truly to support true HDR, but like the current liquid retina displays can't get bright enough, but the iPhones can get bright enough for that. I think it's just because the iPad is a much larger display. But supposedly, according to the rumors, and again, I don't know anything, the next generation of iPad Pros is supposed to get mini LED update, and with that, I believe we would get true HDR support.
Gotcha. Yeah, that'll be interesting when I start doing some filming with my Mini to boot up my 10.5-inch iPad Pro, which I still have, to just compare what that stuff looks like between the two devices.
That would be a very interesting comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. Like, it's not a really good comparison, but I have a HDR 4K TV at my house here, so I'd be kind of curious what that footage looks like on my iPad versus that TV. I will, when I do, because I am going to go buy an iPhone. When I do get one, I am kind of really curious about what that ends up looking like.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that's gonna be awesome with all this. We like creating stuff on iPads. It's a good thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Something I'm curious about. So we're talking about multi-core with the Z versus single core with the 14. What applications actually tap into that multi-core? Is it purely like photo and video editing? Can you think of other things?
I mean, it really kind of depends on your situation, I guess, and on what kind of stuff you're using. Obviously, like text editors and task managers, they're going to stick with those low performance cores. But when you're doing like heavy tasks, if you're pushing a lot of data, that's where those multi-cores can really come in. I think it was in the iPhone keynote, like they were talking about like, oh, here's this doctor and they can download these files over 5G and they're massive files. Well, when you start getting those massive files, they need to be processed, and that's when that multi-core stuff comes in. But that's why Apple on their processors, they have the low performance cores and the high performance cores. If you're just doing not anything super intensive, that's when you use those low performance cores, and that saves battery. You want to just keep using those. Those high performance cores are really for like the break glass in case of emergency kind of thing. Like you really don't want to have to use them, because I can tell you right now, like my iPad battery is fine until I start editing 4K video, and then that's when those high performance cores kick in, and that's when I'll lose like 50% battery life in like 2 hours.
I was just thinking as you're talking, I'd love if there was activity monitor for iOS and you could run it in the dock as that icon like you can on the Mac to just see the CPU and stuff. That'd be just fascinating.
That and I really want to see. I really would like on the Mac. There's a tool by Blackmagic that's like basically checks like disk speeds.
Yeah,
and I would love something like that because that no one can kind of figure out what's going on with external hard drives on the iPad if they really are like limited for some reason, if they're slow. Because sometimes for me they seem super fast and other times they seem super slow. And I can't quite figure it out. And I don't know if it's something to do with like the different drives that I have. The one that I have used, and this was sent to me for free, so grain of salt here, I guess. But CalDigit makes this, I believe they call it the Tough Nano, a external hard drive. And that's the one that's worked best for me in the past.
Okay. And something I do all the time with my iPad Pro is my screen brightness is maxed out. Because I'm in some setting, I need it brighter.
Mm-hmm.
How are you finding the max brightness? I know it's a little bit less bright. Is that noticeable at all?
The only one that I mess with the brightness on is my iPad Pro when editing video. So the iPad Air, I've mostly been just keeping it on auto brightness.
Okay.
And I'm in a pretty well lit room, so like that's been fine. The only time I messed with the brightness was when I was editing that keyboard cover. I turned it up a bit because some stuff was looking fuzzy, and then I realized, oh, hey, auto brightness is on. I need to crank this up a little bit so I can kind of see the details in the video. Speaking of editing video, I will say I wouldn't want to edit video on this iPad just because the preview window is so small.
Yeah.
And it's just not a great experience.
See, Chris, you need to edit in portrait where it takes up half the screen.
Oh, no. No, landscape.
Joking.
No, I want it in my Magic Keyboard so I can use the trackpad and all the keyboard shortcuts.
The real solution there, Chris, external monitor support with LumaFusion, I believe, puts that viewer externally, right?
Yeah, but doesn't it? It does something. I've tried that before, and it does something that I don't like, and I can't remember what it is. Was it when you're scrubbing through? It doesn't. I know it doesn't show the preview window on the iPad and the monitor at the same time. It only does one or the other, and I know I didn't care for that because like I'd be scrubbing through looking at the timeline and have to like look up to see the monitor or something. It was something like, it's been so long.
You need a position. You need like a smaller monitor that sits like just identically next to the iPad or something.
Well, I've been using this laptop stand now, and what I could do is I could put like the monitor at the center and then the iPad off to the left, but that just feels like a lot of head turning.
Sure.
And I don't know.
Yeah.
My office is in flux right now, just because I'm working on a few big projects right now. So I've like had to take a bunch of stuff out and put a bunch of stuff in and move a bunch of stuff around. So once things calm down, probably early next year, I'm going to get a little experimenty when it comes to iPad setups and really try a few things because I think there's some interesting stuff you can do. I just need to have some time to do it all.
Yeah. Put some iPads on some arms that can just float around the room.
Yeah, exactly. Like, put maybe one of those like autonomous deals that people can remote control and like just drive around. And no, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that. Those things are expensive. I looked at one of those for a joke once, and I was like,
what, like $2,000?
No, like it was like 10 or something.
Oh, wow.
It was ridiculous. No, they were ridiculously expensive because I had the opportunity of doing something and I was like, oh, this would be really funny in this case. And I was like, okay, I have a number in my head that I am willing to spend on this. And it went way past that number.
So, speakers. There appear, based on just the visual look, to be 4 speakers on the Air.
No. There are only 2, and apparently I have gotten comments all day long about this.
Yeah.
Apparently some people said there are 4. There are not 4. I know this for a fact. The easiest way to test is play some audio and put your fingers over the speaker and see if the audio changes. If the audio changes, audio is coming out of that speaker. No, there are two.
Okay.
It looks like there's four. It looks like the iPad Pro where there's four. But if you're holding that iPad Pro, if the iPad Air, excuse me, names are confusing.
Yeah.
iPad Air in landscape with the USB-C port going to the right. So you're looking at the screen, USB-C ports going to the right. Traditional way of holding an iPad in landscape.
Yep.
It is the two speakers on the bottom that they're at. The two speakers at the top are the hole cutouts. They're
fake.
Purely decoration. Yes, they are for symmetry only. Apple likes symmetry. We've all known this for a while. I don't know why it's surprising anyone right now.
So something I heard Renee say on Twitter, I don't know if this is accurate. He said if you like cover the bottom with your hand, it'll magically go out the top speaker. Is that at all? Can that be possible?
Maybe there's air. Maybe there's like a gap, like there's some sort of gap that the audio the sound waves, if you will,
can
come out
up there.
Yeah, because like you're blocking that path.
Yeah, I don't know. It sounded odd to me.
I know for a fact there are only two speakers in there.
Yeah.
But like if you put your hand over one of them, the audio clearly changes.
Yeah.
So I will say
How are they? How do they sound?
They're fine. They're fine for what they are. The iPad Pros are definitely better.
Mm-hmm. It's like HomePod Mini versus HomePod.
Yeah, which I'm so curious to try. I really want one of those HomePod Minis. But I don't think they're very loud. They should be louder. And there's not too much bass to them. They need more bass.
Yeah, I do love cranking the iPad Pro's volume all the way up. It just sounds so glorious.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I'm not a big fan. I mean, it's fine for like what it is. If I was like cooking and wanted to listen to a podcast while cooking, it would be perfect for that. Mm-hmm. But if I was wanting to watch like a movie or something like that, I would want to grab some headphones.
Yeah. How do the speakers react when you're in portrait? Does it go mono? Does it change in any way?
I can't really tell a difference.
Okay.
Years and years of listening to loud music, I think, has really wreaked havoc on my on my ears.
And then I guess one of the last questions is, what makes the Pro? So this year the iPhone 12 is a lot closer to the 12 Pro. And this year, the Air is a lot closer to the Pro. So where's the relationship here between the Air and the Pro? And it's close in price point as well, just like the iPhones are.
So there's still a lot of differences between the iPad Air and the iPad Pro. So we already talked about ProMotion, the four speaker array, which is just louder, the A12Z, which gives you more cores both in GPU and CPU, bigger displays, which, you know, as somebody that if you were drawing or an artist, that would make a difference. As somebody that edits videos, that makes a huge difference for me. A big display is nice. Face ID is the other one. Face ID is definitely kind of like, I'm kind of surprised they just didn't figure out a way to make Face ID cheaper and put it on the iPad Air, but at the same time, I really do like Touch ID on it.
I'm glad they engineered this so they can use it in other things.
Yeah, and I'm curious if they would. Like, I really don't think it's going to be a one-off thing. Like, I don't think they just engineered it for the iPad Air. Again, I don't know anything.
Like, this could be in an Apple Watch in the future as well.
Yeah, or like the base iPad. Like, the base iPad eventually will get a redesign. Like, and the one that I'm really excited for is the iPad Mini to get a real redesign. That's the one that
The Air Mini. I want the Air Mini.
Yeah, exactly. Like, give me what the Air is in the mini size. That's what I want. Obviously, like, I don't think you would get like the keyboard case or anything like that.
No.
But no, there's definite stuff that separates the Pro from the Air. But I think the Air is the default iPad for a lot of people to go with. If you're not doing big creative projects, if you're not drawing with the Apple Pencil, if you aren't needing those 4 speaker arrays, if you're not watching like a lot of video or listening to a lot of music and you want it to be super loud, like if you don't need that, I think the iPad Air is the default iPad to go with.
It's the getting work done iPad if you're not a creative, basically.
Yeah, and you don't need that extra screen real estate because like having that extra screen real estate also means you get better multitasking.
Totally,
apps can just take up more space
and a bigger keyboard.
Exactly, bigger keyboard, full size keyboard. Though I will say the team behind designing the smaller Magic Keyboard did a great job. I messed up a couple of times when I'd reach for like the backslash key. just because like my finger wouldn't go all over just enough, just because I'm used to a full size keyboard. When I was just typing normal stuff, it was perfect. I didn't feel like I was messing up because that keyboard was small.
Yeah. And I guess the USB-C port has faster offloading for big files.
Yes, that was the other thing. I knew there was one more thing. USB-C port on the iPad Pro is 10 gigabits per second, whereas opposed to the iPad Air, it's 5 gigabits per second, which is still pretty fast.
Yeah,
like
totally fast enough. Yeah. Is that the difference between USB 2 and 3? Is that what that is, or is it
no?
different?
USB 2 is like 40. No, what was USB 2.0 speeds? It's slow. Let me look it up really quick because it's actually worth knowing. USB 2.0 is 480 megabits per second. I was starting to say 48 megabits per second. No, 480 megabits per second.
Because the iPhones are still USB 2, is that right? I don't think they've ever made it to 3.
I don't think they made it to 3 either. Like, I can't remember, but USB 3.0 is 5 gigabits per second, so that's what the iPad Air is. And then technically the iPad Air.
Wait, yeah, how's the Pro get faster?
So the iPad Pro uses, and I can't remember which one it is called now. It's either USB 3.2 or USB 3.1 Gen 2.
Interesting.
But yeah, that is basically, and that brings it closer to Thunderbolt. But then we're going to have so it's USB 3.1 Gen 2 is what the current iPad Pros have. They renamed it. It used to be USB 3.2.
Yeah.
And I think USB 3.2, or they're changing it to USB 4 now, is going to be the one that has Thunderbolt married into it.
Gotcha. That'll be great when Thunderbolt comes to iPad.
Yes. I mean, it's an eventuality. Thunderbolt is being open source. It's obviously going to be, they're going to build it for Apple Silicon to work with that. So why not put it in the iPad at that point, especially the iPad Pro?
So the Air transfer speeds will be similar probably to the 2017 iPad Pros. I think they were USB just standard 3 as well.
Yes, I believe so too, because they used Lightning, and Lightning doesn't have enough bandwidth to do the USB 3.1 Gen 2.
Yeah.
The USB consortium, if you're listening, please fix your names.
Yes.
Please. Please fix your names.
And for storage, 256 is where you max out, and it's a basically $150 premium if you do want to go Pro at the same storage level.
Yeah, so I struggled with this. The iPad Air starts at 64 gigs, and I like the 8th generation iPad. That one starts at 32 gigs. I don't think that those storage tiers are enough for what you're paying. That's not enough, but also to do anything with. Got to keep in mind, iPad OS eats up about 7 gigs right off the top, so you're going to lose that. If you want to put photos, music, games on there, that's going to eat up storage so quickly. So if you are planning on getting one of these, please, please, please consider the 256 one. I hear from people all day long. I literally, this is the thing that I hear from the most. People buy an iPad, they buy the base iPad or whatever iPad with the lowest amount of tier, thinking they're going to save money, and rightly so. Like, they will save money, but then they use up all that space. And I'll get an email or comment in the YouTube channel basically like, hey, what can I do to make more space? And you can't add storage to an iPad. You can't. There's nothing you can do. We already talked about this. Please consider, if you're considering getting one of these iPad Airs, please consider the 256. But also keep in mind, it's $100. Like Tim was saying, it's only $150 more to get the iPad Pro. So if you want those extra cores, if you want the slightly bigger screen, if you want ProMotion, if you want the better speakers, Face ID, faster USB-C, for $150 more, I kind of think that's a good deal. Like, yeah, I mean, if I was looking at that for me, I would probably go with the iPad Pro. Granted, I do work from the iPad all day long, so that there's a big asterisk on that, I guess.
Right. Yeah. And the colors aren't that exciting enough to sway you down. I don't think.
Not me when it comes to getting faster transfer speeds, because I film all my videos in 4K, so it takes a while to transfer all those video files over 10 gigabits per second. So
yeah, and they still didn't move the camera to the proper place for webcam.
No, it is still technically at the top when it's in portrait.
Because if they did that, a lot of people are just like, oh, I'm just going to get the Air because it's got the webcam placed at the right spot.
No, it's still in the same spot. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets moved in the iPad Pro. Now that we have the Magic Keyboard in the next generation of the iPad Pro, now that we have the Magic Keyboard, it kind of seems like that would be the natural spot. I've done a few, when the 2020 iPads came out, it was kind of like right at the start of COVID. like right at the beginning of it, and everyone was like, "Oh, they really should have moved the webcam or the front-facing camera." And I was like, "I don't. Why? Like, nobody actually uses that." And then now, being well into COVID, I couldn't tell you how many video calls I've done off this iPad. And what I have to do is I have to put my iPad in a iPad stand that raises it up high, but it's still not high enough because I'm 6'1". So I have to put books underneath it to raise it up even higher. And if they just move that front-facing camera up to the top, I wouldn't have to do that.
Sure, yeah. And I wonder with iPad OS 15 in this year of so many people using Zoom and stuff more often, if they'll finally address third-party apps and split screen with camera usage and fixing that.
Yeah, I really think that it's past time that they fix that. Also, they need to introduce multi-stream audio for podcasters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I haven't done a podcast in a while, but doing this one, like the amount of gear I have sitting on my desk just to make podcasting from an iPad work is ridiculous. You should just be able to plug a microphone into the side of the iPad and just be able to do it. But no, I've got 3 pieces of gear plus an iPad plus a microphone sitting on my desk right now.
Yep. Yeah, it's a lot of gear to do it.
just to have a Skype call and record the local audio track.
Yep. Skype can record your audio, but you don't want to use that on a podcast. It doesn't sound
great. No. I mean, if you need a backup, it's there, but don't use Skype audio as your podcast.
No. And awesome video for the review. I really enjoyed watching it. And
thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was fun to wake up and say, "Oh, Chris has a buggered review. Let's give this a watch."
That was a fun one this morning. I didn't tell anyone about that. I didn't tell anyone I had it. You're not supposed to, but I didn't because I wanted that surprise. I got a lot of text messages and Twitter messages from you and some other friends on the internet that were really grateful and really supportive. That was the word I was looking for. It was really nice to just hear from everybody, and it was a really interesting morning, that's for sure.
For doing these videos, do you storyboard out things for different shots, or what's kind of your creative process for making these?
So I have been kind of mixing things up recently. You might have noticed I've stopped writing. What I used to do is I used to write a script, record the audio, just the audio of me reading that script, edit that audio, put that in, and then film a bunch of B-roll and put that over that. I've stopped doing that because I realized I was doing a disservice to myself and my channel, where I was cutting out my personality. And apparently that's something people actually like. Who knew? But yeah, so I've started doing more A-roll talking head. So what I've been doing now is I'll write an outline for how I want it to go, kind of a loose outline. So just so I don't forget talking points and stuff like that. Like I mentioned, I don't remember if this was while we were recording or not, but my iPad Air review was originally 45 minutes long. So there was no way I'd remember everything in that I wanted to say. So I outline everything. We'll record the A-roll, me talking into it. I'll edit that A-roll. And then what I'll do is, as I'm editing that A-roll, I'll just kind of pay attention to where I think B-roll should go. And I'll write down a time code for that B-roll and then a quick note of what I think that B-roll should be.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I'll go back and put that in. It's a bit of a tedious task. What I would like to do for smaller videos is I would like to have a multicam setup so I can do top-down shots and then just cut between the two cameras for smaller videos. But for big videos like this that I know are going to be seen by a lot of people and stuff like that, I still want to film that B-roll because I do enjoy it. It takes a lot of time. I think I spent about 6 hours filming B-roll for that video.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it takes a lot of time to film that kind of stuff.
Do you hang on to old iPhones for multicam stuff in the future?
I have my last 2 iPhones, so I have an iPhone 10 and 10s around here somewhere.
Okay.
I think Apple is doing a really nice trade-in deal. I was telling you, before we started recording, I actually have to buy my iPhone this year because my day job they're not buying them this year for the people that are on the company plan. Yep. So I might trade in my iPhone 11 Pro Max just because they're giving a really good trade-in value for that, and that cuts about $500 off the cost of an iPhone. So
Could you trade in a 10R and have equally good trade in, or not so much?
Maybe I didn't really push it. When you did the pre-order thing, they just asked about one phone. There wasn't an option to put in another phone.
Oh, I meant instead. I'm curious what the difference would be.
No, it was less.
Okay.
But to be honest, I was fine trading this phone in. I'm not going to keep it around. I'm fine using my current phone as a second camera angle. Because I know it's going to be the best camera. So I'd rather use the iPhone 12 than the iPhone 11.
And you don't need 20 multicams.
Yeah, exactly. I don't need that. I'm not doing some live production of something. I don't know, a musical. But I don't need that.
Okay, yeah. And then also check out your keyboard cover LumaFusion video. It's short and sweet and really shows off that cover really nicely. And I kind of want one of those just for when I'm editing almost.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, they're really it's a really nice thing. If you're getting into LumaFusion or pro in LumaFusion but want to learn all the keyboard shortcuts, they're really nice to have. Not sponsored or anything, but they did send it to me for free. So
yeah, cool deal. Well, where can people find your channel?
If you go to YouTube, you can type in Christopher Lawley. That's Lawley. I'm the one that's not the folk singer. If you go to the folk singer, you went to the wrong channel.
You should do a partnership for a video. That could be interesting.
A collab. That would be amazing. You could sing a folk song. I keep making that joke on every podcast that I guest on. I need to come up with a better joke. But I'm the non-folk singer one. So okay. I'm the iPad one.
Cool. Well, thanks, Chris, for your time. I know it's been a crazy day for you, and congrats again on doing this awesome review.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
Well, that was my interview with Chris, all about the new iPad Air. My thanks to Chris for his time recording this episode, and to you for your time and attention tuning in. My thanks again to Drafts for sponsoring this episode of iPad Pros. Learn more at getdrafts.com, and download it today to get started with one of the best text utilities for iPad OS. With that, thanks again for tuning in to this episode of iPad Pros, and I'll talk to everyone again real soon.